Welcome to Crimepedia podcast. This week I am your host, I'm Cherry, and with me is the man that can. It is my co-host, it's Morgan.
I can only can when I can't. Hey, how's it going?
All good, all good. We just had a very, very fun Crimepedia Extra episode. If you aren't a Patreon, you seriously need to be one. There was some explicit stuff on our Crimepedia Extra this week.
I think it's going to get a NC-17 rating.
I think it's going to have
Definitely,
to.
right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
There was some steamy stuff going on over there. So yeah, if that's your thing, if you want to hear Morgan in all his steaminess, just get on our Patreon. You can get on there for as little as like $2 a month.
Yeah.
So nothing. And you'll thank me for all those nights when you're lonely on your own. You just can listen to that. We got to say hello to K&L Love from the US of A. They've given us a lovely, really, really nice review this week, saying that they love it. It's their new favorite podcast. So thank you. We love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We need to remind you that you can still get your tickets for both the Crime Cons, for British Crime Con, which is in June. Yeah, June 11th and 12th next year. And also for Vegas, CrimeCon Vegas, which is in April next year. Use the code Crimepedia to get yourself a discount from your ticket price, which is exciting.
Yes, please do.
Yes. And if you can give us a little review, we would really appreciate it. If you're not good with words and you just want to give us stars, 5 will be amazing and we'll love you forever.
Yes, please.
I've got an update for you, actually. Remember we did the case, Christine Butcher. She was the young girl who was 7 years old that was murdered in Windsor. Remember we did that? I can't remember what episode number it was, but it's one of our episodes.
Yes.
Well, I processed a Freedom of Information request. Remember I told you that her case file was sealed for like 75 years. Well, I put in this Freedom of Information request and I had a few backwards and forwards conversations, and then I got this reply. It says, having considered the public interest test, we've decided that this information should remain withheld. I regret to say that this means we cannot make this record open to you or the public in general. So it says, I've previously explained to you that in all of the information, the record is covered by section 31 and 38 of the Freedom of Information Act 2000.
Okay.
Basically, this says if it was released, it could put at risk certain law enforcement matters, which include prevention or detection of crime, arresting or prosecuting offenders, administrative justice, collecting or assessing a tax or duty, operating immigration controls, and maintaining security and order in prisons.
What?
So, exactly. Then it went through and said, this is the argument made in favor of the non-disclosure. It says this information within this record relates to the investigation of a murder that remains unsolved. Disclosure of this information into the public domain could prejudice a future investigation and prosecution.
Come on.
Yeah, so they did this outcome of public interest test to see. It was the Metropolitan Police that did it and said basically why it shouldn't be released to me. And it says the record contains the personal and sensitive public personal information of a number of identified individuals assumed still to be living. These individuals have a reasonable expectation of privacy, which would not include the release of this information into the public domain by the National Archives during their lifetime. So to do so would be likely to cause damage and or distress and would be a breach of the first data protection principle, which is concerned with fair, lawful and transparent processing of this kind of information. So basically,
so weird.
It's been set for the lifetime of,
anyone who they've questioned.
Yeah, basically. So that was quite interesting.
How's the Queen doing, by the way?
I don't think it was anything to do with her particularly, but
all right,
it's very strange that it's like they've sealed it for 75 years.
I mean, I can understand them protect.
So redact those parts.
Exactly.
Redact those parts.
Yeah.
Because surely the whole thing shouldn't be, you can't redact the whole thing. I mean, I understand them keeping back certain things, such as like details of the crime scene that they only the killer would know. I get that, obviously. Mm. But we're talking about a case now where the victim would be over 80 years old now. So the chances are of an adult murderer at the time being still alive is
Alive?
very slim.
Yes.
So does that
No, you're
indicate
right.
that it's another kid or somebody around her age?
Possibly.
Could, is there somebody that we don't know about that was interviewed at that time that was around her age that they don't want to be bothered?
And they specifically said that people in there in the file could be alive.
Yeah. Could still be within their lifetime at the moment for them to, if they release the file
within
to me,
their lifetime.
it's still within their lifetime.
So let's say, I mean, hypothetically, they could decide that a lifetime is 100 years, right?
Yeah.
So that would mean that it could be someone in their 90s, maybe? Like 80s or 90s?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Frustrating, isn't it? Because I don't understand how you're going to solve a case like that if you're not giving out any details whatsoever. Those people are going to be very old.
It's not even an active case at the moment.
Well, no, that's right. They're not actively doing anything with it. It's strange. It's strange to me that they won't give out anything at all.
That is very strange.
And I've not heard a lot about this case. If I was to mention this to most people, I don't think they would know about this.
So when is it scheduled to be released or open to the public? Or
I can't remember now. I can't remember what date it was due to be reopened again. But it was like ridiculous. It was a long, long time. Let's see if I can find it on the thing here. No reference. So
because it was like 75 years because they did it in 1970s where they
it was like
19 sealed it, right?
It was the murder. There it is. 1951 was the murder, and so
but they sealed it in the 70s.
They sealed it for like 75 years. Yeah, it's something like 75 years that they sealed it for. Because that's why we said, didn't we, that it would be within someone's normal lifetime. The reason they've done it is for somebody's normal lifetime. But yeah,
so strange.
It really is. So yeah, that was the update I've got now. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to still keep trying to find out information on it, and we'll see.
There has to be, because she was found on royal ground, right? I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the grounds of Windsor Castle.
So the royals had to have been involved in the investigation. Not like
directly.
Well, at the time, Elizabeth or
she would have been princess, wouldn't we? We know that because we got told off by lots of people. Yeah.
We know she was a princess at the time of the murder.
Yeah, we knew that she's a princess, but it was just easier rather than saying Princess Elizabeth. It was just easier to go with the Queen because obviously everyone knows who she is.
Yeah, look, I don't want to confuse our American listeners. They're like, wait, I know Queen Elizabeth. Who's Princess Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm saying, it had to have been someone that, they had to have spoken to someone that had connections to the royal family.
Must have done.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, this week's case is another case. This is a case from 1931.
You love these oldies.
I do. I love the old cases. I find it really interesting the way that the process of the investigation is so different to nowadays. I find the old style policing so interesting. I could do work on ancient policing because it's some of it you look at it and just go, what the hell are you even thinking? Why are you walking across the crime scene? And why are you smoking and picking things up and putting them in your wallet and putting them back down again? And, what are you doing?
I mean, it would be really fascinating. Or could you imagine watching how the police handled the Jack the Ripper case?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It'd be so interesting. I'd love to bring a really old, one of those old policemen from back in those days to now to show them. Can you imagine how confused they'd be at how amazing we do things nowadays and what we take for granted now? We take for granted that DNA is there. We just take that for granted in court cases and stuff. And it's when I'll explain to you later about the files, but the files that I got for this case are hand typed. They're all hand typed on a typewriter.
Yeah.
It must have taken the person typing absolutely ages. I had one of those old-fashioned typewriters, and you
Yeah.
can't really touch type with them very well because you have to hit them so hard. So it's usually only like 2 of your fingers or 4 of your fingers that can hit so hard on the keys. And if you mess up, you have to start again because they didn't have Tipp-Ex in those days where you could like correct it and go back.
Oh my God, yeah.
And there,
That'd be so annoying.
it would be so frustrating, wouldn't it? So, yeah. So this week's case is the case of Julia Wallace. A brutal murder in 1931. A woman is found in her house bludgeoned to death. The house is in seemingly good order, although some things have been rifled through. Some money is missing, but other items of value are still there. All doors are reportedly locked when her husband comes home and discovers her body in the house. This is Crimepedia, and this is the case of the impossible murder of Julia Wallace. Okay, Morgan, I think you're going to like this case. So it was evening on the 19th of January, 1931, and William Herbert Wallace was visiting the Liverpool Central Chess Club at the City Cafe on North John Street in Anfield in Liverpool. So he lived at a place called 29 Wolverton Street in Anfield with his wife, Julia. He was 52 years old. He worked as an insurance salesman for the Prudential Insurance Company, and he earned around £6 a week. Crazy, isn't it? All back on those days.
Yeah.
So he suffered with kidney problems quite a bit and had like operations and hospital stays previously. And he was quite a sicky man. He often suffered with problems with his kidneys. Quite a lot of the reports that I read said that he was very reserved. Him and his wife had a pretty secluded life. They had no kids. His wife, Julia, was a reserved lady too. So they didn't really go out socializing. More often they entertain friends at home. But there are some conflicting reports that I read saying the couple were really dull and they had a loveless marriage, that William was really sour and was disliked by his customers and his colleagues. And then I read one that said that even his wife disliked him. So he wasn't a very liked man. But other reports that I read from people in the crime in the case files says that he was an okay man, just very quiet, like nothing too much to talk home about. So he had been a member of this city centre chess club for quite some time, but he wasn't really a regular there. Like most of the people that went there to play would be there every single week, but he hadn't been to the club at this time in a few months. But the club had him on a scheduled list to play that night. But you could never really tell whether he'd actually turn up for the game until he actually got there. So you couldn't really rely on him to be there.
Yeah.
Shortly before he arrived at the club, the captain of the club, a guy called Samuel Beattie, took a call from a man calling himself R.M. Qualtrough. Now, the caller told Samuel that he wanted to meet William to discuss insurance business and to meet him at a place called 25 Menlove Gardens East. And he wanted to meet him the following night at 7:30. So this guy on the phone seemed convinced that William was going to be at the club that night. Obviously, they phoned up to speak to him. Now, he's got a track record of not reliably being there. So it's odd that he phones that night knowing that William's going to get this message for definite.
Well, yeah. And how would they know that? How would someone know that he's going to be there at all?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So
especially if it's someone that's calling about insurance.
Yeah.
You know, you don't think that, I mean, they don't have a list of it. These are the known locations this guy goes to.
Yeah. So I thought that was very strange. William did say that he didn't know anyone called Mr. Qualtrough at all, but he decided that he would set out to meet him as requested, like the following night. So this was January the 20th, 1931, and he caught the 5 tram at 7:06 p.m. from Anfield to Menlove Gardens. So he was reported by people in the area that saw him to be acting really strangely, and about a dozen witnesses saw him out and around looking for this person that had called. So on the tram, he repeatedly struck up conversations with the conductor and the ticket inspector, asking him repeatedly where he should get off to get to this Menlove Gardens. He made a point of telling them that he was a total stranger in the area. He was telling them his story about Mr. Qualtrough and and telling him the time that they were supposed to meet and where they were supposed to meet. And then when he got off the tram at Menlove Gardens, he stopped local residents, went into newsagents, asked a policeman. It was literally just asking everybody to help find the location of this appointment. Now, despite the fact that he asked literally everyone that walked past him, it soon became quite clear that there was no actual place called Menlove Gardens East. Now, on the map, there were a couple of Menlove Gardens in the area, but the streets were like north, south, and west. But there wasn't an east, so there was no Menlove Gardens East at all. And he even called into the local post office to try and find out where this road was, and they said that we don't know of this. So it was basically a hoax call. So William was fed up walking around at this point and then decided to just go home. So on his way home, he was spotted by a 20-year-old typist called Lillian Hall, and she said that she saw him around 8:35. This is quite important. It was around 8:35 talking to another man on Richmond Road, which is close to his home on Wolverton Street.
Okay.
Now at 8:45, so just 10 minutes later, John and Florence Johnston, which is his neighbour, spotted William stuck outside his home. He looked really upset, and when they stopped to see what was going on, he told them that he had got home and the front and back doors of the house wouldn't open. He seemed to be quite confused and concerned, as Julia was supposed to be home and not going anywhere, and he couldn't get in the house at all. So he asked the pair of them, "Have you heard anything unusual tonight?" The Johnsons were like, "Well, no, we don't know what you're talking about." Walked round to the backyard of William's home, where they opened the door without a problem. So the door, when they got to it at the back door, wasn't actually locked at all. So William appeared to be quite relieved when he walked into the house. The house was in total darkness. It was winter. Obviously, they didn't have electricity like that then. So he went in and lit the lamp as he went into the house. Then he came back out and said, this is exactly what he said. "Oh, come and see. She's been killed."
Nonchalant.
Well, I think it doesn't really say exactly how he said it, but just the words, "Oh, come and see. She's been killed." So even if she...
It sounds nonchalant.
It does sound quite nonchalant. So the couple went into the home and found that Julia was sprawled out in the sitting room in front of the gas fire. So she had been violently beaten to death. This was a horrendous crime scene. Her body was lying in a pool of her own blood, and there was blood spatter evident on every wall in that room. So the room that she was in was like, back in those days, they had like a best room, you know, like for when people come to visit, there's like a guest room that you would then go and sit in the good room with all the nice, you know, furniture. And my next door neighbour used to have a best room when I was growing up. So her front room was only used for when visitors came, and the middle room was their actual sitting room that they would sit in on a daily basis, but they would never actually go into the front room unless they had guests. And that was where all the good china was and the nice, you know, sofa and stuff was. So that's where she was found. The dress that she was wearing was partially burnt, and a coat was laid out underneath her, which was also quite badly burnt from the gas fire.
Yeah.
So William is literally just stood there staring at his wife, and he turns to the neighbours and says, "They finished her. Look at her brains." So I don't know if he's in like shock.
What?
Yeah. So on first appearance, it looks like Julia's death is the result of a burglary that's gone wrong. Because everything, as far as William says, all the doors were actually locked to the house. So this has happened from inside the house, and then all the doors have been locked by the perpetrator on the way out. The locked kitchen cupboard where William kept his insurance money had been forced open, and the £4 of cash in there was gone. So although that doesn't sound much nowadays, if we think back to then, it was almost a week's wages for him. Nothing else in the house had been taken, including Julia's handbag, which was left inside, totally undisturbed. Other than the room that she was in, the bedroom looked like had been rifled through. The rest of the house was completely in order. So only the bedroom had been rifled through, and the kitchen cupboard had been forced open. So it seems from that kind of information that this person knew where to look for whatever they were looking for, because they didn't just ransack the whole house. So at the time of Julia's murder, there was a serial burglar nicknamed the Anfield Housebreaker. But the attack that happened to Julia didn't seem to fit with any of the crimes of this burglar. Now, that if you Google the Anfield housebreaker, there's also one from like the 2000s, another Anfield housebreaker, but he was actually caught. The other reports that I read was that back in those days, there were gangs that would break into houses using skeleton keys. And they would break in, ransack the house for cash and jewelry and valuables, then leave and lock the doors behind them. Now, this is people in their like early 20s, they believed. And there were houses on their road that were ransacked by these gangs. So obviously at this time, John Johnson and his wife are there with Mr. Wallace. They called Merseyside police, who got to the Wallace home quite quickly. And obviously fingers were pointed to the obvious suspect, William, because the doors were locked and only he and his wife have keys. So after the police arrived, a journalist from the Liverpool Daily Post was called out to act as the police photographer. So you got this journalist coming out, taking the photos. Now, also a forensics expert. This is forensics of the time. We're talking about early 1900s. And the forensics expert was called out, a guy called John Edward Whitley McFall. And he was called, listen to this, he was called out to determine the time of death. Now, obviously back then forensics weren't what they are now. And they used rigor mortis to determine the time of death. Now, we know that rigor mortis can occur between 1 and 6 hours after death, but it's usually within 2 to 4. And some bodies don't go through rigor mortis at all. But looking at the state of Julia's body, McFall stated she must have died at around 8 p.m. Now, this is quite crucial because this time of death was nearly an hour before William had arrived home. So if that's correct, William couldn't have killed his wife. So the medical evidence proved that she had only been dead for 2 hours and had been seen by a milk boy who called at the house at 6:30. So this narrowed down the time of the crime so far as William was concerned, because if he had done it, he would have had to have killed her, gone out and come back within a period of 15 minutes.
Oh, which is not possible.
No. So this is the prosecution's theory, right? The prosecution's theory was that he committed the murder naked, except for a mac. Do you know one of those like macs that you wear that we've done in our old cases before? So apparently he committed this murder naked, except for this mac, the charred and blood-stained remains of which were discovered under her body. Okay, so he's like bludgeoned her to death, put his mac down, he's now naked, lay her on the mat and then tried to set fire to it. That's what they're saying. If that was the case, he would have to get undressed, put on the mac, lure his wife into the front room, which obviously, like I said, was only used on rare occasions. That would be quite strange for him to get her into it. Commit the murder, get rid of his raincoat, try to destroy it by fire, go upstairs and get washed, remove all traces of the presence of this washing in the bathroom, get dressed, like mess up one of the rooms upstairs, come downstairs, break open the cabinet, take the money, take a last look round to make sure that he hasn't left anything, run out, then come back and see his neighbours as if, and this has all got to be within 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. And the sightings at Menlove was confirmed, right?
Yes, by multiple people.
So, no, you can't do that.
No. Now,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't. Well, I mean, we know obviously that partners and spouses are always the suspects when someone's murdered.
Yeah.
Obviously. But in this case, he appears to have a watertight alibi because the tram conductor and the ticket inspector placed him on the tram at 7:06 p.m. So we know he was on the tram at 7:06, nowhere near his house. We know that there's a number of witnesses that saw him around Menlove Gardens around the time that his wife was apparently being murdered. Now, in Anfield, more witnesses came forward to see that they saw Julia alive at 6:30 or 6:45. Well, if that's the case, if he had murdered her, done all of that, got dressed, left the house, got on the tram at 7:06, there's no time for it. But police also examined drains around the house, and they found that they hadn't even been used that night. So he can't have gone upstairs and washed himself off, like they're saying, because his drains weren't used that night.
Okay.
Now, after the murder, a switchboard worker at the Liverpool Telephone Exchange helped police trace that call that was at the club to a phone box 400 yards away from William Wallace's house, which is next to
Oh.
the stop where he caught the tram to the chess club that night.
Oh. Okay, and the call was made 25 minutes before he arrived?
Yeah.
Can I ask you how long the tram ride takes to get from where he was
I don't
to?
think it's very far. It's not far.
Okay.
I don't know for definite, but I don't think it's far. But despite having a watertight alibi, William Wallace was charged with his wife's murder and found guilty at a trial in April 1931.
What?
Yep. The jury deliberated, and it was a really short deliberation, and they unanimously decided that he was guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to death by hanging with an execution date set for a month later.
What?
Yeah.
Off of what? For what?
Yeah, exactly. With all of this apparent evidence that they don't have against him. Luckily, though, for William, an appeal to the Court of Criminal Appeal in London did determine that there wasn't enough certainty to support the jury's guilty verdict, and he walked away a free man.
Oh. Well, that's good.
It is good. But William, basically, after he was let free from prison, he was ostracized by the local community.
Oh.
The trial was really grueling. It wasn't a very nice trial. It was obviously it was all against him. William tried to go back home again, but he couldn't stay there. So he went to live in a new home in the Wirral. But a few months later, he fell ill with his kidney problems and died. So the poor guy has not had a lot of luck. Not have a lot of luck at all. Now, Julia's murder actually inspired. There's a book by P.D. James. It's a crime novel from 1982. It's called The Skull Beneath the Skin, and that is actually based on this case. And I found a fantastic source which has somebody's taken photos of the whole case file. So this is prosecution's case, defense's case, letters to the court for appeal, letters from the court back, all the witness testimonies, prison reports, hospital reports, which is really unusual for a case that was this long ago.
Yeah.
All hand typed on a typewriter. So like we were talking about, all completely hand typed as well, which was really weird to see. But I wanted to read you this. This is a part of like a diary that he kept that's actually written in this case file that I read. And if you'd like to see the case file, let me know and I can send you the link to it, because it is fascinating when you flick through all the photos. Somebody's taken the time to literally photograph every single page. So this is in his diary, and it says, "I'm on the evening of the first anniversary of the day when I stepped from the gloom of the Royal Courts of Justice into the bright sunshine of the Strand, the happiest man alive. I've just heard the judges of the Court of Criminal Appeal decide that I was not to be hanged by the neck till I was dead for the murder of my wife, of which crime I had been wrongfully found guilty. During the interval, I had passed my days and nights in the condemned cell at Walton Jail, longing for the day when I should appear before the ultimate tribunal in my land and have removed from my forehead the brand of Cain which the jury at Liverpool had placed there." And he goes on and on and on, but I've just cut some bits out of it just to show you how he was feeling at the time. So basically, his relatives stopped him and told him that under no circumstances must he return or enter the neighbourhood of his home in Richmond Park, where his wife was found dead, at all. They said that if he was to go back, there would be a hostile demonstration and he wasn't welcome to go back there. So he thought this was complete nonsense and said, well, no, I'm going to come home. But his solicitor basically said whatever public welcome had been planned in the heart of the city is not the sort of welcome you think is going to happen. He forbade him basically to go there except at his own risk, and said you shouldn't.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So he says in his letter, "People whom I've known for years and with whom I've even transacted insurance business take seats opposite me and never show the slightest gleam of recognition. Other fellow passengers peep at me from behind newspapers or the cover of hands held over their eyes. Now, by this time, I've become a skilled reader of the process of their minds. I know exactly the thoughts that are passing through them because their eyes give them away. So I sit firmly in my seat with my head up, I don't wince. They are the ones who shift their feet and drop their eyelids. It's a 10-mile journey from my office to my home. And it takes about 3/4 of an hour. Twice every day for 3/4 of an hour, I face that ordeal. Often in the evening when I reach my lonely country home and shut the world out behind my front door, and when there's no longer need for me to maintain my I can't remember ever say that, stoicism. I sit down in my armchair, bury my face in my hands, and weep like a child. Aww.
That's sad.
It's really sad. But Julia's murderer has never been found. It's 90 years old, and they've never found out who did it. It's literally just stopped after that. It's stopped looking.
All right. So, you know how I love map.
Yeah, you've got the map out, haven't you?
I do have a map out.
Okay.
Now, this is tough. So, so Liverpool tram lines, of course, are no longer in existence, right? So now they use buses.
Mm-hmm.
Now, typically in cities that go from tram lines to buses, a lot of times those bus lines follow historic tram lines.
Right. Okay.
So this is obviously not 100%. So I decided to say, okay, how long would it take for someone to go from, what was it, Richmond Park?
Yeah, Wolverton Road.
29 Wolverton.
Yeah.
To the, what was it, where they had the Liverpool Central Chess Club.
Yep.
Which was located at
24th
North John Street.
That's the one. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So currently, if you were to take that route via bus, it would take you 27 minutes.
Okay.
So could he have made that phone call, hopped on the tram, and went to a chess club? Yes, that's possible.
Yeah.
So now the problem is determining when she was actually killed, right?
Well, she was last seen
when Julia was killed.
She was last seen at between 6:30 and 6:45.
6:30 and 6:45. And what time was he seen first at Menlove?
So he was first. He was on the tram at 7:05.
He was supposed to meet at 7:30, right?
Yeah, and he was caught the tram at 7:06 from Anfield to Menlove Gardens. So he was in Anfield at 7:06 on that tram. He caught the tram at 7:06.
So
she was last in at 6:45.
So that gives him 20.
Yeah.
Less than 21 minutes.
Yeah. To kill her, get washed up, but bearing in mind the drains hadn't been used, so there's a lot of blood. He would have been covered in blood, despite the fact that he had a mac on and got naked and got changed. He would have had to have got her into the room, smashed her brains in, lay her down. So he would have had to have moved her, like taken his coat off, lay her down, smashed up the room upstairs, smashed up the room in the kitchen to get the money out, got himself changed, out, locked the door, and out to the tram, and on that tram for 7:05.
Okay. So then we have no one reporting any sounds, any screams, nothing. We don't have any reports of anyone seen leaving the house or entering the house.
Nope.
Okay. So for me, there's three options, right?
Mm-hmm.
Option one, the husband did it, right?
Yeah.
So William did it, right? Which means
why?
If he did it,
what's his motive for doing it? That's right. He hasn't got a motive. He doesn't gain anything from her dying.
Unless he just was tired of her. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, they've been married for like a long time too.
So is it wrong for the police to focus on him first? No, not at all. Right.
No.
The story is strange.
Yeah.
It's a very strange story that he's telling the police.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to chess club. And when I got there, I got a message.
That was the day before.
I got a message that, someone called. I need to go to this random house at Menlove Gardens for this, right?
Yeah.
They find out, okay, well, the call was made from a payphone right where you're picking up the tram.
Yeah.
And it was made roughly the time that you would have been at that tram stop.
At the tram stop, ready to go to the chess club. That's right.
Okay. So then If it's not him, he didn't murder. Then
Okay.
it's going to be a well planned out robbery, which leads to murder, right? That's a possibility for me.
Yeah.
Or it could be a situation where William had someone rob his house and kill his wife.
Yeah.
Because to me, that phone call is very, very important, of course,
I
right?
think so,
But
yeah.
the fact that they were able to determine that the call was made. It was actually a call made, that it came from a phone booth right where William was, and roughly at the time that he would have been hopping on that tram to go to
Yeah.
Frisco.
Yeah.
Right? So could he have been working with someone and say, hey, I need you to make this, we're going to kill my wife. I need you to make this phone call. This is the number. This is what you need to tell him. And then he moves on, right? So that's a possibility. Now, the other one I said was it was just it was someone that was not involved with William. They were planning a robbery and they ended up killing her. But to me, that means that it would have to be someone that knew William, that was familiar with what he did and where he went, right? And knew that they were able to get him out of the house. But what's strange is, to me, is if they wanted to get him out of the house, why didn't they also try to get Julia out of the house too, if it's just a robbery?
Yeah, exactly.
And so then if it's going to be a robbery, and if the plan was to murder Julia, once again, what would be the reason for someone to target her for death?
That's the thing I was thinking. I think the same. You've got like the three different options. Either he killed her, but he doesn't. I mean, reading through the case files, some of the witnesses and friends of theirs said that they didn't really get on. They didn't really like each other. So yeah, okay. In that, but then
that's marriage.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I think most marriages people don't like each other at some time or other. And then, but they had been married for a really long time, and they had no issues that people knew about. Particularly, a lot of the reports I read that they didn't actually have any issues between the two of them. And they seemed to just bumble along together absolutely fine. He was quite a grumpy man, but he's got kidney issues. So he's in pain quite a lot. And he's had to the point that he's had to go into hospital and have various operations. And his brother-in-law, I read, it's his brother. I read in one of the case files that his brother said that he visited the house and saw his brother and sister-in-law almost weekly. And there was nothing that he would have thought, there was nothing to suggest that they didn't really get on or there was an issue in the marriage. Everything seemed to be okay. And they just seemed to be, good companions for one another. And yeah, okay, they weren't sort of like love-struck teenagers, but they'd been married for a long time. So they wouldn't expect them to be love-struck teenagers at that point of marriage. So there doesn't seem to be any kind of indication as to why he would kill his wife in such a brutal way. But we know from looking at murders now, such a brutal bludgeoning where somebody's taken such a vicious beating, it's a very personal murder.
Yeah.
So if somebody was to rob the place, perhaps they might smack her once on the head to knock her out and carry on with the crime of the robbing of the house. But they didn't take a handbag. They didn't take any other things that were upstairs. There's certain things that they didn't take that would have been financially good for them to take. So they only took the money from the cupboard. So in that respect, the person would have to know where that money was kept. I think when you look at it like that, which is quite interesting, that they didn't ransack the whole house. They only went through one of the bedrooms and they only smashed this cupboard open in the kitchen.
So they would have known where to look.
Exactly. So when you say, did he get somebody, did he do it? I don't think so. Did he get somebody else to do it? Possibly.
But for what reason?
Well, exactly. There isn't really a reason. There's no. I mean, he never remarried. It wasn't as if he had a bit on the side that he was seeing at the same time that he'd had enough of his wife and it was a good idea to get rid of her so he could be with a new lady. There's nothing really to suggest a reason why he would kill her, and why so violently, because it was a pretty horrific murder. So that's interesting.
Well, here, so I ask you this. So outside of Wallace, are there any suspects that could have done this,
No.
or would have reason to.
No, the only two other things that they came up with was this skeleton key gang that they talked about that did, and it did. I've read news reports that there are gangs that operated in that area, and along Wolverton Street they had actually been broken into. There were houses that had been already broken into there with the same kind of MO. They hadn't actually beaten anybody as far as I could find, but they had, I mean, he was an insurance salesman. Everybody knew what job he did. So he collected money from people for insurance and things like that. So they know that he would go and collect money. So the chances of him having money stashed at home was quite high. So the only people other than him that they talked about in this was the serial burglar, which was the Anfield housebreaker, and these gangs. That was the only other two. But the guy that was the Anfield housebreaker, none of his burglaries that he was found to have done had anything like this. He broke into the house. He didn't have a skeleton key. He didn't lock doors behind him. He completely ransacked the whole house and tended to go in when people weren't there. So nothing really. There's no similarities between his MO and this case, this scene.
Yeah. So just looking over this case, it's interesting. So I found a potential suspect by the name of Richard Gordon Perry. I don't know if you've seen this guy.
Okay.
But it looks like he has been at least a potential suspect since the 1970s.
Okay.
So there was a crime writer back in the 60s by the name of Jonathan Goodman who had made inquiries that led him to a junior employee at Prudential that had worked with Wallace.
Right.
And that this man, it appears to have been a gentleman by the name of Richard Gordon Perry. Now, Perry was first, looks like he was first named back in 1981 when a Roger Wilkes, who was a independent radio news editor, he was putting together a radio program to be broadcast on the 50th anniversary of the crime. And he actually named this guy as this Perry gentleman. So what's interesting in with this Richard Gordon Perry, depending on who's talking about him, it almost sounds like this was that he was the brains or the leader behind a distraction burglary,
right?
Which ended up that turned bad. So there's suggestions that possibly he had set up this distraction burglary, and as he was rifling through the stuff and trying to find money, that Julia had come across him, and that's when he attacked her.
Right. Okay.
Or someone within the group. So it's possible it could have been him, or it could have been a group of people that he was working with.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that I don't know how he became a suspect. There's multiple stories about him, so I don't know how much we can really go off of it. So there's some people that say that he worked with Wallace at Prudential Assurance, and that maybe Wallace had something to do with Perry losing a job.
Right. Okay.
But then there's other people who said that
he knew Julia. There's other people he knew Julia, and he was So he was a like a friend of Julia's, or something like that. But he was given an alibi. His girlfriend gave him an alibi at the time.
Okay.
But then later on, they split up, and then she went back to say that actually the alibi she gave was false.
It was false.
Yeah.
See, but that's the problem with that, though.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
Pissed? Yeah, I'm gonna say it's false, and I'm gonna get payback on this guy.
Yeah. It could be. I mean, I think when you said before, there was also witness evidence saying that there was a blood-stained glove found in his car on the night of the murder when he took his car to the garage to be cleaned. So the man who cleaned the car was deliberately suppressed by the police at the time. So they're saying that basically they ignored that evidence because they already thought that they had William Wallace in for it.
Yeah.
And so just dismissed that and just didn't talk about it.
God, see, that's the problem. Like that too. Like, yeah, there was a blood-stained glove inside his car on the night of the murder. How are you absolutely sure that it was the night of the murder that you saw this, right?
Yeah.
That's the one problem with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I will say, like, even if it wasn't this Perry guy, the idea of it being a distraction burglary makes more sense to me than the idea that Wallace just went and like planned this whole thing out and killed her.
Yeah, I read through this. I don't think Wallace did it. I don't think he did. I don't think he did this. I can see why he would be like one of the main suspects, if not the main suspects. I get that, but I don't think he did do it. I think this was somebody else that did this. I don't think it was him.
The only thing that makes me think that maybe he was somehow involved, is that phone call.
Yeah.
And where it was made and when it was made.
But then saying that, if it was somebody local to the area that knew of him, and say like it was this Parry guy, he knows William, so he gets William out of the house thinking that they would be able to what was the word? They would be able to sort of keep her under control. Because you get the man out of the house and the woman is going to be more frightened and not going to put up a fight. So they know who he is. He worked with him. So basically he knows what would get William away. So he says to him, but I mean, he knew that he went to the chess club, but not regularly. That's the other thing. He didn't know when, but for some reason he knew that specific night that he was going to the chess club.
How would they know that?
Yeah.
Because because at the very beginning when we're talking about him and his character, he doesn't talk. He doesn't really not an outgoing, friendly type of guy.
No.
So he's not going to like his neighbors like, "Hey, I'm going to chess club.
Yeah.
See you later."
Yeah. So I mean,
and I don't think he doesn't seem like he's a guy that he probably doesn't have a whole lot of friends.
No, he doesn't have a lot of friends. That's another thing they said in the case file. It's just him and his wife.
So who is he talking to? Now I'm talking to myself back into being Wallace being involved. Because who is he talking to that's going to know that he's going to be at chess club that night? Because he's not like someone's going to know every Wednesday night he's going, because he does not go free. Yeah.
But if he's talking to a colleague and the colleague says to him, so what are you up to tonight? And he says, oh, I'm going to chess club tonight. That's just a throwaway comment. They could have just chatted about that in the day and it'd be inconspicuous because it's not out the way.
The thing, I don't know Wallace myself, but I see him as the type of guy that would much rather, he'd probably say, fuck off, mind your own business.
Yeah.
I'm going to chess club.
Yeah.
Maybe he did. I don't know. So how did someone know he was going to chess club?
And also, if Wallace was responsible for this guy losing his job or losing work, would they be on speaking terms to chit chat?
No.
Probably not.
No.
But I know that they reopened the case in the 80s, like 50 years after the murder. And this is Merseyside's longest running case. It's over 90 years, this case. But it seems to me, again, like this isn't something that people have actively tried to solve. Once you got the case that he was not the murderer and was let free, it kind of got forgotten. And that frustrates me in older cases like this, because we have got every single case file, every single page. I mean, there's photos, there's crime scene stuff, every single one. And you read through it and a lot of it seems like it doesn't make normal sense to me. You read through it and you think, well, how have you convicted this guy of murder? There's no actual physical evidence to tie him to this murder whatsoever. There's nothing to say he made that phone call. He's not got any traces of blood on him. There's witnesses that say that he was not anywhere near his house at the time of the murder. There's people that have said they've seen the wife, but he wasn't there at a certain time. The only strange thing about this is the phone call to the chess club. That's the only strange thing. The rest of it, if you didn't have that phone call, you would definitely look at this case and say, well, he can't have done it because
I don't think Wallace actually committed the murders.
No.
I don't think Wallace actually committed them.
No, I don't think he did.
I think the jury. Well, I think the jury got wrong. I think the judge got right when he reversed it on the appeal. Am I convinced that Wallace had nothing to do with the murder? No, not at all.
Really? You think he has something to do with it?
I think he has something to do with it, but I don't think he actually committed the murder.
Oh,
why? I don't know why. What his reasoning behind it is, but there's too many things which kind of point to he had to have been involved somehow, right? The phone call. I'm going to keep talking about the phone call. The phone call being made right where he was about the time he would have been there.
Yeah.
That is a red flag. That's a huge red flag for me.
Yeah.
The fact that he doesn't have a lot of friends, he's not known to be a talker. So he's not the type of person that's going to be going out of the way to tell people about chess club, right?
No.
The fact that he does go to chess club and the fact that he's not a regular at chess club, so he's not going on a set schedule.
Mm.
So for someone to know for the fact that he would have been there on that particular night,
is strange.
Is very, very strange.
Yeah. And the behavior that people have reported, the fact that he told everybody what he was doing, that he wasn't from that part of town. He made a point of talking to the conductors and stuff to sort of create himself an alibi.
So he's making, here's my alibi.
Mm.
So I'm not at my house. I can't be at home murdering my wife right now.
Yeah.
So if my wife is being murdered, it's not me because here I am.
I'm here. Yeah. I did read.
And
in one of the crime files that some people had said that when Wallace was sick, his wife, he had a friend that used to go and visit him to see how he was doing, and when he used to go and visit, his wife didn't ever seem very caring towards him being upstairs in bed. And she asked the guy when he went to visit, how is he? How's he doing? And he was like, well, he's okay, I think. Have you not been upstairs? And she's like, no, I haven't been up to see him. And he said it was very strange that the wife wasn't really taking care of him. So was he really pissed off at her for not looking after him when he was ill and decided to get her back and get rid of her?
Maybe.
Divorce was a bit frowned upon back in those days. So perhaps he decided it was death do us part rather than divorce do us part.
Is there life
that's what I was wondering. I wonder if he's got life insured. Not that I know of. I don't know if they did that kind of thing back then.
Well, if they did, I don't know.
Yeah. That would be interesting, obviously, if she was insured.
I don't know. Think about this. If you want to get rid of your wife, right? You make sure you have a solid alibi, but you make it so you're like the prime suspect, right? And they're focusing solely on you.
Yeah.
But there's no way in God's green earth they can get a conviction because you have this rock solid alibi.
Yeah. Hey, and if that's the case, he must have been so surprised when he got guilty and was scheduled to die.
Yeah.
He must have been like, oh my God.
And I can't believe how quick that turnaround.
Yeah, a month.
What was it?
A month. They were going to kill him.
You got a month.
Yeah. Basically, you are scheduled to hang by the neck until you no longer live. And then next month, it's going to happen next month.
That's a hell of a game. I mean, if it was him, that's a hell of a game he's playing, right?
Yeah.
He's playing a game with his life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's involved.
I know.
I don't think
I look at the pictures of him and I think, he looks really cute. I'm not sure. But yeah, I agree. It's very strange. For him to have absolutely nothing to do with it, the way he was acting doesn't make any sense to me. He's acting shifty for whatever reason.
Yeah. I like these old cases.
I do too. I knew you'd like it. This is very Sherlock Holmes. I love it. Sherlock would have come in and deduced that she couldn't have died like that because she was facing northeast and the wind was blowing southeast that night. So, yeah. But no one solved it. It's been looked over multiple times and no one, even now, no one has solved this case.
See, I wonder if, so I was thinking about this while you're telling it, about how part of her dresser was singed. I wonder if there had been a fire going at the time, and when
it was a gas fire down. It was a gas fire that she was laying by. But if you remember, the house was in darkness. So if somebody had set fire to her in the hope that the house was going to go up and take her all the evidence with it, it must have died out because it didn't. So unless he set fire to her thinking that
Well, no, he didn't, because he didn't do the murder.
No.
He had the buddy,
Yeah.
Johnny Anfield, is doing the murder.
So yeah, if he did and set fire to her to like then gain the insurance, because he would have had house insurance, surely. I wonder if that was the ploy, in that they were going to set fire to the house. She was going to be found dead inside the house, but she went out too quick.
Yeah, then he was gonna pay his buddy off with the insurance money.
The insurance money. I mean, if you look online about this case, they call it the impossible case because the doors were all locked. But then when you read the case file, the Johnstons find out that the back door isn't locked. So it isn't really an impossible case, because he's saying that he's tried all the doors, but the back door, when they got to it, was unlocked. So it's not a case of it being all locked up at all.
Yeah. Oh, no, not at all.
So that's what, to be honest, I was looking at another case and I came across this one. I started reading it and I was like, hang on a minute. And then I was like, this is crazy. This sounds like a Sherlock Holmes film. It does sound like an old style, like Sherlock Holmes film. So I got my attention then. And as I started reading it, I thought, I've got to tell you this one because it's very strange.
If this is one of those cases that if it happened now, it would be solved.
Definitely.
Quick.
Yeah, quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have had this done and dusted by now in today's standards. But I'll send you the pictures and I'll put them on our socials. There are pictures of like they took crime scene photos where they took pictures of the sink and the toilet to prove that they hadn't been used that night and things like that. It's very strange, their method of policing back then. It is quite strange. But I'll send you them so you can see. It is very interesting.
If OJ was wearing gloves, someone else could be doing this murder. How old was OJ in 1931?
Fit, you must acquit.
Where was OJ?
I know.
At this time.
Where was he? He was in the Bronco.
I like this one.
I knew you'd like this one because this one straight away. What I'll do is I'll put the pictures on because there is actual crime. If you're of a sensitive disposition, maybe don't look at the pictures that I've got of her actual lying on the floor. But their house is very Sherlock Holmesy too. If you look at it, there's a big old fireplace with a gas fire in it, and he looks a bit like Albert Einstein, I think, with neater hair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, this might be a dumb question. Did they take fingerprints in 1931? I'm assuming so.
Well, I don't know if there was anything to take, but yeah, I guess.
There was no known murder weapon.
Oh, well, they think it was the fire poker, but they don't have a fire poker if it's a gas fire. But apparently, it was a piece of a piece of like, that's what it said, a fire poker. But
why would they have a fire poker if it's a gas?
Exactly. Yeah.
What?
So there is actually a foundation called the Julia Wallace Murder Foundation. So you can actually find this online. There's personal letters from William Herbert Wallace. There is lots of writings from different people. There's a part that explains the whole murder from start to end, so you can go and have a proper look at it. You can see the phone box where the phone call was actually made. It's really, really interesting. So the website is actually called williamherbertwallace.com. And if you go and have a look at that, it will show you all of the police files. It will show you photos of the house. It will show you drawings of the house where they lived. It will show you pictures of the two of them, crime scene photos. It's once you start looking, like, it's amazing. It shows you the whole floor plan of the Wallace household. It shows you the outside picture of it. It shows you the front room. I mean, you've actually got the actual photo of her there dead on the floor. And the blood spatter that they said that there was this horrific blood spatter, I don't think it was as horrific as they describe it. I
like how no one really knew how old Julia was.
No, because they said she was like 60, but on her tombstone it says 52. So was she lying about her age or what?
Look, early sources suggest that Julia was approximately the same age as William.
Yeah.
But in 2001, James Murphy demonstrated from her original birth certificate that she was actually 17 years older than he was.
Yeah.
Which means that she was 67 or something like that, or 60, 69, something like that.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Yeah. So yeah, what else were they hiding? You know, it's so interesting. But yeah, definitely check out the website williamherbertwallace.com. It's so interesting, and it's like you can see so much stuff there when you like look around. There's so many different websites and files about this case, but nobody seems to have been able to solve it just yet, which is you know, it's crazy. And I'm really surprised that we've actually got so much information about this case because it's so old. I mean, we've got cases that are loads younger than this, that there's hardly any information because the files have been, you know, lost in a flood or they've been, but this, we've got everything. It's amazing. It's such a good case to look into. If you're over Christmas, guys, have a look into this case. Tell me what you think. But I knew that you would love this. This is going to be one that you're going to look into and find so many different things every time you look at something new. But I just love him. I just love the look of him and her.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good case.
Wow.
So that is this
very
week's
good.
case
Thank you
for
very much.
No, you're welcome. I'll try and do a bit more up-to-date one next time. But you know me, I love my old cases.
I know you do. No, that was a good one.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm glad.
All right. Well, how about we do a little dumb criminal?
Yeah, let's go.
Hey, dum-dum head. You's a real jackass.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you very much.
All right. So this one I came across and it cracked me up. I love this one. You're going to love this one. Trust me.
Okay.
So a mother in Missouri is facing jail time after she admitted to stealing her estranged daughter's identity in order to secure student loans, enroll in college, and pursue her sexy co-ed fantasies.
No.
Yes. So Laura Oglesby, 48 years old, posed as her daughter, Lauren Hayes, for more than 2 years in an elaborate scam that fooled both the federal government and locals in the small town of Mountain View, Missouri. Okay. In 2016, Oglesby applied for a Social Security card in Hayes' name, which she promptly received in the mail. From that point on, Oglesby, who originally hailed from Arkansas and was then 43 years old, assumed her daughter's identity, saying her name was Lauren Hayes and that she was only 22 years old.
Oh my God.
She even started seducing unsuspecting men in their early 20s who had no idea that Oglesby was almost 20 years older than she said she was.
She must have been really hot.
There is no way someone thought she was 22.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
She had a hard life.
everyone believed this. She even had boyfriends that truly believed that she was 22 years old.
No.
All right. So there are photos out there that appeared that Oglesby had her own Snapchat account where she pretended to be Hayes and posed with an array of youthful filters over her face.
Oh my God.
She completely adopted a younger lifestyle, clothing, makeup, personality, and she completely assumed becoming a younger person in her early 20s.
Why would you do that though? Because like now, at our age, if you speak to somebody who's in their 20s, you've not got a lot in common. I mean, you're old enough to be their parent for a start. You can't chat about movies of the 90s. You can't talk about stuff like that. What do you have in common with other 20-year-olds?
Nothing
at all. That's weird. Weird.
So she ended up moving in with a couple in this town of Mountain View, Avery and Wendy Parker. And this couple actually believed that she was a young woman running away from a domestic violence situation.
Oh, God.
All right. So Oglesby actually also applied for a Missouri driver's license in her daughter's name and enrolled at the Southwest Baptist University. She applied for financial aid and received $9,400 in federal student loans, $5,920 in Pell Grants, and $1,863 in finance charges.
Oh my God.
Now, so she did this once again for almost 2 years, but then police in August 2018 were contacted by authorities in Arkansas who believed Oglesby had committed financial fraud by using the name of her daughter. Good job, Arkansas.
Yeah. I mean, I can
recognize the
understand
name.
pretending to be like 20 years younger if you fancy someone and you want to get laid, but once, not for 2 years.
Oh, yeah. So Oglesby is facing 5 years behind bars without parole after pleading guilty to one count of intentionally providing false information to the Social Security Administration. Now, under terms of plea agreement, she must also pay $17,521 in restitution to Southwest Baptist University in Missouri and also to her daughter.
How embarrassing would that be, though, to go to prison? You're in prison with like murderers and like other crazy people, and then they say, "What did you do? And you're like, I pretended to be 20 so I could have sex with co-eds, and they're going to be like, you loser.
Look, okay, you look at her picture. She looks like one of those moms that would be like, "Hey, I want to party with my daughter's friends," and so like she's like the type of mom that's like hooking up booze to like underage kids.
The mum in the Craft.
Yeah,
giving all the girls like wanting to be friends with them, and how embarrassing! Her poor daughter.
Could you? I don't know how she thought she would be able to. Well, I guess she got away with it for 2 years.
Yeah, so that's
how she got away with it. I have no fucking idea.
What a weirdo! What a strange woman.
Absolutely insane.
That is crazy. That's a great one. What a dumb criminal.
She is absolutely epitome of dumb criminal.
Well, at least she didn't forget her trousers on a nudist colony or run straight into a prison. She got away with it for 2 years. She didn't do too bad. Oh, thank you. So yeah, that was our case for this week. That was our dumb criminal for this week. We'll be back next week. And next week is a different kind of show. It's going to be a joint effort next week for the last one before Christmas.
Yeah, it's our last episode of 2021.
It will. And then we've got our special episode on the 29th of December. It's like a Christmas party where we've got lots of guests coming in to join us, and you can find that on YouTube. So you can watch us and watch that episode live if you want to on YouTube. It'd be 9:00 UK time and 4 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Yep, that's correct.
Go me knowing my American words.
There you go.
So we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us. So for now, be nice.
And bye.